Shavua Tov. This is Motzei Shabbat, Shabbos Nachamu, 5775. So I want to share with you a story which came to mind from Shlomo's stories that came up this afternoon. We were talking a little about Tzedaka. It's a great story. There was a time when the Russian police had a very easy way to make money. They would arrest they would arrest a Yidla, a Jew, and then tell his community that if they wanted him released from prison, they'd have to put up bail, meaning the ransom. As it happened, there was a police chief in Mizrich who had been extorting funds from the Russian government. Word reached his boss in St. Petersburg, who sent his accountant to check the policeman's books. He was in trouble now. Now the policeman had embezzled 10,000 rubles. He knew that if he didn't get that money back in the account in 24 hours, he would be arrested. So the Russian policeman decided to apprehend a Jew and get the community to put up the money for his freedom. There were two orphans in Mizrich who, until they met each other, had nobody in the world. They became engaged. As neither had any family, the community banded together to give them a beautiful wedding. The chuppah, as all Jewish weddings, was to take place at night under the stars. But that morning, as the groom was on his way to the mikveh, the policeman stopped him on the street and arrested him. He told all the elders standing outside the synagogue, if you want this groom to make his wedding, you'd better put 10,000 rubles on my desk by tonight. The policeman was so determined not to be talked out of the ransom that he even went so far as to hang a sign on his door. Any Jew who comes to see me without 10,000 rubles in his hand will be shot. The community was brokenhearted. 10,000 rubles was beyond their means. Luckily, the three most important pupils of the Maggid of Mizrich were there at the time. The Alter Rebbe, that's the first Rebbe of Lubavitch, Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Miladi, who was 17 and not yet a Rebbe. Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Berditchev, who was already 27, and Rav Mendel of Vitebsk, who was a little older, said about 31. The three got together in the synagogue and talked. We have to get that young man out of jail, not only because he's getting married tonight, but he's an orphan. He has no one in the world to redeem him. In those days, there was a great deal of unity in the ghetto, Baruch Hashem. When the Rebbes were talking, the community thought to band together and sell whatever they could. Upon making an estimate, however, they discovered that if everybody sold everything, houses, cows, chickens, pillows, forks, spoons, coffee pots, even candlesticks, the most they could collect was 500 rubles. But if selling, we can't imagine the poverty that our ancestors lived in. But if selling wasn't going to raise the money, they didn't know what to do. They obviously needed a benefactor. Now, there was one wealthy person in Mizrich named Zev, but he was without doubt the biggest miser in the world. Zev Mamish never gave away a penny in his whole life. He even had a sign outside his house: to all beggars, anyone who trespasses on my property will get shot. And he would do it. The worst was the manner in which he had become rich. In those days, a Jew couldn't get rich on his own. If you wanted to make a fortune, you had to convert. So Zev, without too much reflection, had changed his faith. The Alter Rebbe, who had been quietly thinking to himself, turned to Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Berditchev and Rav Mendel of Vitebsk and said, the only one who can give us money is Zev the miser. You're crazy! I don't think so. Everything from heaven points to him. So, they said to him, you're crazy. And he said, everything in heaven points to him. Besides, there's nobody else with the resources we need. So what happens when he shoots? He won't shoot. I'm going to see him right now. If you go, you'd better take us with you for protection. So the Alter Rebbe thought it over. He said, you can come with me on one condition, that I do all the negotiating. Whatever I suggest, you just smile. Don't so much as open your mouths or you will ruin everything. Though the Alter Rebbe was the youngest of the three, he was mamish very forceful. The others agreed to his terms, though they didn't believe he would succeed. Only the Alter Rebbe felt confident he could get the money. The first miracle was that Zeb the miser was so shocked to see a delegation of rabbis at his gate that he didn't shoot. The Alter Rebbe spoke, "Forgive us, we wouldn't have the audacity to ask you for help, but we have no choice. This young boy's wedding is tonight. He's an orphan. The police chief arrested him for no reason and will not release him unless we raise 10,000 rubles. Zeb the miser got tears in his eyes. "This is a most heartbreaking story. Certainly I will help you." He went into his office and came back with 1 penny. 1 lousy, filthy penny, which he had kept around the office for years for an emergency. Rabbi Yitzchak Berditchev and Rabbi Mendel of Vitebsk, mamish wanted to jump down the miser's throat. A penny? But the Alter gave them a sharp look to remind them of their promise. No talking, right? Then he took Zeb's hand. "Thank you so much. You don't know what you've done for this boy. I bless you that God should give you the strength to do more good deeds like this in your lifetime." The 3 men left and walked away in silence, deep in thought. They had gone about half a block when Zeb the miser sent a servant to call them back. "Please return, I want to help more," was the message. They hurried back. At the door, Zeb the miser fished in his pocket and handed them another penny. Rabbi Yitzchak Berditchev and Rabbi Mendel of Vitebsk clenched their teeth to keep their mouths shut, but in their souls they were yelling, "What chutzpah! You think we have time to fool around with your pennies?" Because they knew the clock was ticking and it would take years at this rate to raise 10,000 rubles. But they kept their promise to the Alter Rebbe, 17-year-old Alter Rebbe, right? And didn't say a word. Again, the Alter Rebbe shook the miser's hand and blessed him and said, "Thank you so much. Hashem will surely reward you for what you have done for these orphans." To make a long story short, negotiations with Zeb the miser went on for some time. In each round, he offered them another penny. The Alter Rebbe not only was patient, but he responded to every coin Zeb the miser offered him as if it were the most significant gift in the world. Only now came a breakthrough. Zeb the miser began to give rubles. Instead of 1 penny at a time, it became 5 rubles, 10, 100, 1,000. At last, he had given them the entire 10,000 rubles. The 3 Rebbes thanked the miser profusely and ran to the police station to save the boy. Not only was the groom happy, but Zeb was a transformed human being. His soul had been completely purified. After having nothing to do with the Jewish community for so many years, he raced into his bedroom to change for the wedding, where of course he would be the honored guest. In the meantime, the policeman, alone, I guess in those days, the town's having a wedding, everybody comes, period. In the meantime, the policeman, alone in his office with 10,000 rubles on his desk, began to think to himself, "Why should I turn over these 10,000 rubles to the government agent in the morning? Why not take off and live like a king someplace?" Because in Russia in those days you could get lost very easily. But the policeman didn't just disappear. As he made up his mind how to go about it, he drank 1 glass of vodka after another until he was drunk. Then he hitched up his horse and wagon and started on his way, heading west to a bridge at the edge of the city. The wedding was in an open field next to the river on the outskirts of town. Here everyone in the Jewish community was celebrating with utmost joy not only the marriage of the two orphans, but also the groom's freedom and Zev's return. The police chief, drunk out of his mind, was in such a hurry to get away from the town that he began whipping his horses like crazy. He crashed into the bridge with such force that he was thrown from the wagon into the river, where he drowned instantly. At that moment, the bag with the 10,000 rubles, which had been next to him on the seat, flew off the wagon into the wedding party, where Zev the miser was dancing like mad. It landed right at his feet. Ordinarily, Zev the miser would have taken back his 10,000 rubles, but he was so happy that he offered the money to the couple as a wedding present. Later that night, the Alter Rebbe, Rav Levi Yitzchak Berditchev, and Reb Mendel of Vitebsk met again at the synagogue. The two older Rebbes asked the Alter Rebbe, "Holy brother, what happened with Zev? How did you know what to do?" So he said, "Understand, spiritually, Zev had the strength to give only 1 penny, but no one would take it. My accepting that first penny gave him the strength to give yet 1 more. The more he let go, the more he wanted to give, until finally he became so strong, like Abraham, our father, that he was able to give us the full 10,000 rubles." So Rabbi Shlomo comments, the deepest Torah is that as much as you need strength for physical work, you also need spiritual strength for a mitzvah. Every time you do a mitzvah, a good deed, the capacity to do others grows more. Schar mitzvah, mitzvah. The reward for a mitzvah is another mitzvah, right? The angels say sometimes a person gets angry at one another for doing so little, not realizing that, alas, the other one lacks the strength to do more. It's up to us to welcome their little deeds of charity as a way of opening the gates for them to give much more. Shavua tov, hamavdil ben kodesh lecho.